Recording. All right, everybody, welcome to another session. Today we're going to be talking about how do you create like great presentation within Revit. Now, typically what happens is that this is what rendering looks like, money shots, and this is what we usually give to clients. But unfortunately, this takes a long time to process, and this is not what we're doing today. Okay, what we're doing right now is that we're going to be using Revit shaded views, and at the same time I'm going to show you guys a couple of techniques that I've used in the past that you guys can actually make very nice kind of features for your Revit. Okay, let's go for a demonstration. But before then, I'm just going to open up this presentation. I'm going to make it available for everybody after this presentation. So what I did is that I took a bunch of type of shaded views that you guys could use, and what you can do is that you can have multiple different variations. So you kind of have to play around what works best for you. One of the things that you guys could use is shadows and transparency, and that basically creates a different mood for different things. So what I have is I'm basically showing you guys sample what you can do. So you could just experiment with it. I won't go too deep into this because this could take like hours and hours just explain how I do this, but just go in there, just take a look. Now, the most interesting part is that if you like to have this black and white look, like let's say AutoCAD kind of black and white as kind of your presentation, what I typically do is that this is my technique how I would achieve it. The first thing you do is make all the lines white, okay? White lines, pattern everything white. The only thing that you need to do is that your surface pattern, make it all solid black. Okay? The next thing you want to do is that you want to make your background gradients so that they're all black. And as a result, this is what you're going to get, right? So if you want to have this kind of a presentation where it's all black and white and invert color, this is what you're going to get. Okay? Just experiment. I mean, I'm just showing you that yes, it's possible. You can still do it. Rather than putting in AutoCAD, what most people tends to do, but here, yeah, you can do it inside Revit. All right, adding punch. I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably know, or some of you guys may not know. What you can do is that sometimes when you're projecting Revit model, it looks pretty flat, right? So the one thing I would typically recommend user use is use the silhouette. And I usually change it to, like, let's say wide lines. The minute you set it to wide line, this is what it's going to look like. It's like your object starts to pop up. Now keep in mind, when you do this, the only thing that will affect it would be roof, floor, columns, generic models, and I think that's pretty much it. So, and walls, sorry, walls. I forgot the walls.
So you just see the outlines of objects?
That's correct. You just basically make things more punchier.
Adding line weight.
Right, just adding in more line weights to this. All right, I know that there's another new one. I didn't put it into this. It would be the sketchy lines. Have you guys tried it out? No? Okay, later on I'm going to show you what sketchy line does. Okay, it's pretty cool. So normally how you compose some of this view, well, this one is all kind of like you guys know how to do it. What I like to do with Revit is that I like to put it more like in layers. Okay, so you have the background layers and then your foreground layers, and then you just kind of composite them together with your Revit model. And what it does is that it makes it into like more of this, right? Okay, there I'm just going to show you how I would do it inside the real demo. So this is basically how it's happened. You're going to put it on a sheet, okay? And when you do it in a model, what you do is that you're going to have different layers of background, okay? The model doesn't have to have all this fuzzy stuff. So what you can do is that you can actually put in transparent images. Later on I'm going to show you how that's done, how I built this. And you can make it more like this. So it looks kind of nice, right? And then at the same time, you can also add a foreground layer, right? So you can make it change hue color. And sometimes what you can do is that you can also add a filter that makes it look like it's a sketchy line, right? So this is perfectly fine, like for presentation. So you don't have to do a lot of like photoshopping. So this is all done within Revit. Okay, So this is basically just a, yeah, maybe I should just go into the demo how you do it so that you guys can actually understand how it's done. All right. Okay. Let's open up the project. Let's see if I have that project open. No, I don't. So this project is pretty small. What we did is that it's a clubhouse. So I did this test demo just to try and display it that you could do a lot of stuff with this. Okay. Now this is kind of like the result you're gonna have. Okay, so this is what it looks like as a result. So how do you plan this? Now the first thing I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna basically create a camera view. So just put a camera view. Just put it like, okay, this looks good. Okay, plan it out. Put it where you want it. If this looks good, that's great. One of the things I would tend to do is that if you like how the previous shadow works, I would typically create a view. Let's say, for example, this is what I would, oh, not this one. Let's see, where's my 3D? Where's my 3D camera? Sorry. Okay, let's say assume that you like this view. Okay, this looks good. The first thing you typically I would do is that just create a view from template. Okay, and call this like, let's say 3D view. Okay, this is good. Once you like this, then what you're going to do with this is you're going to apply that 3D view. Okay, once you hit apply and said okay, that's the look you're going to get. The next step you're going to do, you could put in backgrounds. Let's say background, you can put it in as an image. I typically avoid doing this because sometimes what happens is that when you insert an image, once you print it out, sometimes the image gets stretched. I don't know why. So I would say don't do this. Leave it blank. And the next thing you would do is just create a new sheet. Let's say blank title block 11 by 17. And what you're going to do first now is just basically lined up your 3D view. Okay, 3D view. I'm just going to say no title. And this is where you're going to have an opportunity. If you think that your view is too small, just size it up. I always select the scale lock proportion. Here I like to do like 10 inches height. Okay, that looks good. And what I like to do with this is that I like to crop it so that you get this particular view. And then the next thing you want to do is that if you want to put an image of the background, I'm just going to use one of my image from the other view. Let's say, for example, this. Oh, actually, no, that's no good. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go into my J drive and then just insert in an image. So let's say BIM standard, focus group, make presentation looks great, samples. Now you can download a lot of the images. So what I typically like to do is that I like to download sky. Okay, I should do this large icon. So what I like to do with this is you take one of the backgrounds, you download it, and then you drag and drop. Okay, so I like this. So let's drag and drop.
Do you have a folder of Entourage?
I'm gonna make that later on. Okay, so let's assume that this is the picture you want, and all you have to do is just scale it down. Okay.
Hey Simon.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I kind of missed you. You just literally dragged and dropped from the folder. You didn't like insert image or anything like that.
Nope, just drag and drop.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a cheap technique. So you don't have to do a lot of stuff. So if you like the view, that's how I do it. And then if you want to adjust it, let's assume that this is too distracting, the angle is not good, then this is where you have the opportunity to kind of move around where you want your thing to be. Right, your background's going to be there, that's fine. And then the next step you want to do is that you want to compose where you want to put all your trees and stuff like that. So what I typically do is that I just go in here, let's say, okay, I have people, okay, so let's assume I'm going to use the biker. Okay, just put it in. And what you could do is that you could just scale it down and just drop it in. And now what you're going to do is that you're going to bring it to front or make it to the foreground. Okay, so it's pretty quick and easy. If you think about like photoshopping, right, it's going to take you forever. This one is just drag and drop. Now the images that I'm providing is just it's a PNG file, right? It has this transparency already built in. Okay. If you have Photoshop, you can also do the same thing. Just say cut it out, and just say save it as a PNG format. And then what happens is that it's going to have this transparency. Okay. Same thing as trees. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to add this tree. Okay. This one has that white background because it's a JPEG. So let's assume that I'm going to go in here. This looks nice. All I have to do is just drag and drop, bring it to front, or make it to the foreground. Okay, so this is how I kind of like cheat my way. Okay, just put trees and all that stuff, and yeah, you could basically create like really fast kind of like rendering within Revit. All you have to do is just put your pictures in there, and then that's it. All right, the next step is to show you that you can also use fonts as your text, as your like objects. So I'm not sure if you guys heard of fonts. So what you can do with fonts is that you can create trees. So let's assume that this is the font that I'm using, duplicate, and just call it trees. So what I typically do with the font is that I usually go and download, I'm just going to download fonts.font. Okay. I'm pretty sure some of you guys heard of this. If not, then I'm just going to show you where I find all my trees. Okay. So you can actually use the trees, right, as a font. So if you want to like populate your like model trees around surroundings, just use the font, right? Just say A, B, C, D, E, and what you do is that you're gonna have a bunch of stuff. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do with this. So I'm just gonna say trees. I've downloaded. I'm not sure if it's called trees.
There's a company that makes Revit silhouette trees.
Yes.
They're quite nice.
Yes, there is a program out there. I haven't really tested out, unfortunately. You can build your own font, so just go download it. I'm not sure what's the name of it. Tree TPF. So I'm gonna go save it. Let's say, no, not Revit City. And then I'm just gonna go open it and see what is my name of. Okay, it's Tree TPF, right? So what you do is that if you want to install it, just okay, this is what it looks like. If you want to install it, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is just copy this and.
So this isn't gonna make like Megan mad that we're downloading random files from the internet?
Well, make sure. That's the thing. I mean, this is kind of like it's within the office, right?
Okay.
If you want to do it within the office, it's fine. But if you send this file to a consultant, make sure you give them the font. That's because they're not going to have this font, okay? So if you're in here in this font, just dump it here.
Well, I guess you'd export it PDF, so it would be
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there you go. And then it's going to ask you. I'm just going to say installer. Okay.
Now, these have to be on your personal desktop?
It
or
has
do
to
they-
be. Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing about fonts is that you can't basically locate it and put it on the server, unfortunately. Like AutoCAD you can, but not for this. So this is all like Windows font. Once you have it in there, then you just basically go find that tree, if that's the name. Let's see if it's there. Tree. Oh, it's not there. Maybe I should cancel it. Yeah, I probably have to reboot it. But the trees is in there, so I'm just going to open up my model inside. There is a tree there. That looks like a tree. There we go. That's what it is, model tree. Oh, actually, it doesn't pick it up because I didn't install it. So if you don't have the tree, it's not going to show up. So what this does is that all you have to do is just press like A, B, C, D, E, and what it does is that tree becomes a different look. Okay, so this gives you an opportunity to kind of play around what you want to do with the trees and stuff like that. So, okay, but for this one, I don't have the file installed, but later on if you want to test it out, you can do that. Okay, check it out. It has quite a bit of stuff. Sometimes I use car as well. If you want a car, let's say elevation car, right? If you hate, that's a lot of. There's a car font for this. I should say Volkswagen. There we go. You have all your Volkswagen. So you have auto. So rather than your elevation, you just basically say ABC, and then you have this different fonts,
That's really fun.
right? So the nice thing about this is that all your stuff is done. You don't have to do a lot. And yeah, there we go.
But if you wanted to put in like real trees into your model,
Yes.
there's like the Revit native Revit trees, which are
Right.
really bad.
Yes.
And we don't have any other assets we offer.
Like Arc Vision. Yeah, it's something that we're thinking about downloading stuff. Because we're just creating a bunch of stuff. It's kind of tough to gather some of the stuff because we don't know what we have in the past inventory, and this one is kind of like its own individual licensing.
Mhm.
That's what I hate.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it like as a license for everybody.
Oh well, for sure. Yeah, you know what? I hadn't thought about this in a while because I was talking from it for a little bit. But
Sure.
I will dig up. I'll see if I can remember where we got those silhouette trees because I think they had a silhouette option and then they also had a tree
Sure.
option, and they were really great from an architectural drawing point of view.
Now the other thing I would do, I'll show it to you how I would like compose trees. Let's say if you have a tree inside, like using Revit trees. One of the things I would do, let's say assume that I'm going to use deciduous tree. Okay. Let's assume that this is the tree that you want to use, and I'm just going to put it into here, and I'm just going to basically placing trees here. Now on elevation, so what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to, oh, there's my elevation right there. Okay, so in here, what you see is that there is an elevation. Come on, go to my elevation. Okay, this is what it looks like. You can compose them.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do is that you're going to duplicate this view. One is with tree, the other one without tree. So let's go into the sheet view. Okay, so let's assume that I'm going to duplicate this. This one I'm going to call self with trees. And then this one self, I'm just going to turn off the trees. So let's assume that I don't need the trees for this, so I'll go to planting. Okay, and for this trees, I'll turn off everything else except for the planting. So let's say this one, I only want planting, and then I don't care about the annotation. Next thing I would do is that I would change this to realistic. Okay, so what you have is that you have a tree, it's already set up, and now what you can do is that on a sheet, let's assume I'm going to use Lambda 17, and then I'm going to put in my self elevation, and then I'm going to put in my tree, and then it will automatically locked. Let's assume, come on. Oh, there we go, it was snap. And what you could do is that you could compose your RPC trees with your model. Okay, so you don't have to have all of it, all the views show up. You can always compose it. I like to compose it because you can say you can have a mixture of realistic and your images at the background. So this is sort of like this kind of a sample that I just want to demonstrate what you could do. So this is kind of like what we did for this perspective view, is that I blend realistic, let's say there's an image with the shaded view. So it's the same idea basically. So what I have is that this perspective view with the signage, I set it to just the realistic, okay? And then this is just my basic. And when you combine them together, you're gonna get this kind of like, kind of a presentation kind of a look. So it can save you a lot of time, so you don't have to do all of this in rendering. So all of it is already pretty much done. Okay.
Is the transparency of those two different views set? Or
That's correct. So in this signage view, what I did is that I set this transparency for the panel. I'm not sure if I set it to filter. There you go, filter, work set. And I set it 50%. So once I set it to 50%, it basically will show through that 50%. And then you can see through that, signage. It's going to be behind that facade.
One more question.
Sure.
The darkness of the left versus the right, is that just like regular generated shadow?
Yes, that's regular shadow. Yes.
Okay, you did it. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a shadow itself. So signage, you see that This one is using realistic. So realistic, it's using shaded view, right? So and then on top of it, they also added in the this extra stuff. Okay, so that's how you compose it, right? You don't have to have everything all figured out. So this one is another perfect way to do it. So I'm showing you the first one is image. You can just put in an image pretty quickly. The next one I showed you is the text. You can use the text and then just plunk it in what you want it. This one is just using shade, like the actual realistic with the shaded view. Now, if you guys want to add effect, let's assume that you want to add a bunch of scratches on the front. So what you could do, okay, so let's, sorry if I'm jumping all over the place. Okay, this one I have to turn it off, the tree, so planting, I have to turn it off. Okay, so let's assume that this is what you want and you want to show like a little filter at the front. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is that you want to create a floor, like an object, right? Right now I created this object, but I'm just going to create another one somewhere else. So let's assume that this is where I want to put it. Okay, all it needs is that, oh, there we go. So this one has this material. So if you want to add that, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is just create one called blank floor. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to create a new filter. Okay, I'm just going to duplicate this. Just use the filter floor. Call it something else. Next thing you want to do is that you don't have to change anything. The only thing you have to add it in is the image. So how you do it is that you just say remove image and say I'm going to go click on image again. Okay, this is where I'm going to change it to a different image. So let's say I'm going to go this one, shading. Okay, it's pretty simple. You can make it as big as you want or as small. For this one I'm just going to leave it like that and then say OK and then hit OK and then hit OK. Okay, it's going to look like that. You can make it as very simple as possible, or you can make it whatever you want. Okay. The next thing you want to do with this is that I'm just going to duplicate this. Okay, and I'm just going to crop this view. And just use this as my crop. Okay, this is acting as my kind of my background. Now, next thing you do here is that you would set your floor. Give it a transparency. Let's assume that this is 80%. Okay, so you get that look. Now what you're gonna do is that you're gonna just compose it on top of this. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is that I'm just gonna take this. Okay, it's too small. That's fine. Let's make it slightly bigger. So let's do a 1/4 inch. Let's make it more. Let's do half. Okay. And at the end of the day, if you don't like it, then this is where you're gonna crop it where you want to put it. There we go. So you have this kind of like a filter, and on top of it, if you want to do sketch line, for those who don't know what sketch line does, just go to graphic. The sketchy line can add a bunch of stuff. And then white lines. Any questions so far with this? Pretty cool technique. It's a lot of layering. So here I'm just going to show you another project that I did in the past. Is that this is a pretty simple project. Okay, this is a model. Right, it's all rendered inside Revit. So what I have is that I have images, layering background. So this is the first image, and then on the background here, I use a bunch of images, right, just to compose kind of like my trees. I always have like a money shot. Like let's say this Ferrari, right? It's in our library if you want to put it in as a money shot. Yeah, I downloaded, so you guys can use it. And also all this RPC thing. This is not using text. This is just using someone actually did this whole family and stuff like that.
Like the Revit family people?
Yeah, people. but I find that it's better if you use the font because the size is actually smaller.
Oh, just like lighter.
Yes, lighter, smaller, and this one is like about a meg each because they have to do a silhouette, and that can you kind of have to measure how complicated is your model. The more complicated, I would advise using the model people, like using text rather than using this. This one I kind of put it in because I know that I'm going to send this to client and they don't have our font, so this is perfect way to do it.
So, how can you get the shadows?
Oh, okay, shadows. To do shadows, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't understand how shadow works, I'm just gonna go to one of my. Yeah, let's delete this ugly fuzzy thing. Come on. I'm just gonna remove this. Okay, how to do shadow. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the jittering because it can be very annoying. Okay, how shadow works really depends. Right now, by default, it's I cast a shadow, and then there's also ambient shadow. Okay, what ambient shadow does is that it gives a little bit more pop. Like you see that there's a certain gray area spot here. Now, if you want to change lighting, the first thing I would do is that the sun I always put it like 80%. This one by default I put it, and then shadow I always do 30. You could do ambient, but the ambient will only works if you're using shaded and realistic. It will not work with consistent. Okay, just keep in mind. So in here I like to do 80, probably 40 and 20 or 30, depending on 80, 40, 20. Okay, just to give you that balance. Because what happens is that it will make your model a little bit lighter. Right now I just tune up my sun to 80, and then my ambient is about 40. You see that it's started to lighten up, right? Because sometimes it could be very, very dark, and sometimes people say, oh, I want more white, right? So just pump up the light. The next step you want to do is that if you want to change the where the position, okay, sunlight. So what you could do is that you could do still, okay? If you do still, you have to pick a location, okay? If you want to do like really realistic, kind of like, oh, how my shadow is going to work, then you just pick where you want it. But if you want to do faking shadow, I typically do lighting. And then you can turn off relative to view and change this angle. So you can do 210 and then do 60 degree. And what it does is that the shadow would be a little bit different. But this one, I like to see the interior more, so you want to keep it low. So 15. And here I'll do like 145, for instance. Okay? So you notice that the shadow is constantly changing.
Yeah, but I meant more for the fonts. Like when we use people as fonts.
Yes.
If their model, they
have a shadow, yes.
But for the fonts, you could not get it.
You can. Yep, you can. Okay, so what happened is that you kind of have to use this model text.
Okay.
As soon as you use a model text, then your people is 3D.
Okay.
And then you can just plunk it in there as it is, and then you can put A, B, C, D, E, and then it'll become people, and then, yeah, it will cast shadow. Okay? Now, the one thing, this one in particular, if you're doing lighting, this one, ground on a plane. Okay? If you don't have a ground, I usually just keep it to the base level, which is like level 1. But if you have topographics, I always turn this off. Okay? Because I like to use topographics as kind of like my underlay, and then any shadow will cast on it. This will impact you when you're doing like huge shadow study. Let's say you're doing a site shadow study, and your property or your topo is only up to a certain limit. Then yes, I would turn on my ground plane. You can do multi-days and all that stuff, but most of the time it works as it is. Now for the background, now keep in mind you can do sky. What it does is that Revit will just provide you with their own sky background. I don't like it because you cannot control it. That's the unfortunate thing. Gradient, you got a little bit more control, Okay, so what I typically do is that I just do a gradient. Right, this is what it looks like, but it's very flat. I don't like it. This is why I prefer not to do that. But sometimes I have to do it just to see what's the context. You could do image, and you can say, okay, I want to put in an image file. Image. Oops. Let's see. Image for quick presentation, background. Let's see, view, thumbnail. Okay, let's assume this is good. Yeah, you can do that too, right? But keep in mind, once you put it in here, once you get printed out, that image is going to be distorted. I don't know why. It's something wrong within the software. It's very glitchy, so this is why I personally don't use it, and I would typically just use the whatever background you put in here. It's the best result. So when you print it, it is what it is.
Question regarding the colors that are applied to the building elements.
Mm-hmm.
Are those colors applied directly to the families, or are they painted?
Oh, I see.
On
Okay, typically, most cases, if you want to paint, you can paint it, like just to get the looks, right? Most cases, I would say 99%, I was just trying to do it from here, like basic roof. If you create assemblies and stuff like that, and like put in the proper material, that's what it will come out, right? If you don't do that, what tends to happen is that someone has to figure out what material is painted, and then you kind of have to say, okay, let's create a wall based on that. For working drawings, that's going to be really tough, right? Designers, they don't care, just paint everything. But once you get into more of a design development, once you finish it and go into the working drawings, that's where you will end up issues. One project I was analyzing, it was using a lot of paint, and yeah, it drives that person really, really crazy. So at the end of the day, I just told him that your solution would be, if the panels is going to be different color, I would create like a small little sliver of panel, like let's say wall paint. Use a wall that's like have like a 1/8 of an inch, and then you can just say this surface and that surface is going to be different. Okay, that's how I would apply it. I mean, I like most of the time I know paint is pretty easy. You just paint them and then you go away, right? But for working drawings people, they have to tag that wall. It becomes an issue, right? Because the wall itself, if the assembly is incorrect, it will tag whatever that wall is supposed to be, and you sometimes don't want that. So, all right, yeah, this is a pretty short session, unless you guys want to talk about other stuff as well. Now, one question is that I always get asked is that, okay, can I take this 3D model and then compress it and make it into like 2D AutoCAD, like just the detail lines? You can do it. I'll show you how to do it. But the first thing you have to do is that if you want to make this thing flat, like two-dimensional stuff, and make it like detail lines and all that stuff when you import into CAD, all you have to do is that you just put it as a hidden line. Okay, I'm going to first turn this into a hidden line. No shadows, nothing. Just hidden line, no shadows, nothing. And then what you're going to do is that when you put it on a sheet and start exporting, okay, let's say I'm going to export this view. What it does is that it will flatten those view and make it into a 2D element, okay? And say hit OK. And when you open up in AutoCAD, I'm just going to launch AutoCAD first before this thing goes. And what this does is that it flattens all your 3D model into 2D lines. Okay, so if this is what you want, this is how you do it. Okay, because I have somebody that's asking, okay, I want this to be like 2D kind of a thing, so that you can use it as an image for your let's say one of your model, right? Sometimes people, what they do is that they have like an art piece. If you want to create like a special art piece of your building, this is how you do it. You just create bunch of like this kind of a thing and then export it out. Maybe I should demonstrate. It just makes more sense. Okay, Once I have it export out, what you can do here is that you can go into a family, and then I'm just going to create a picture family. Okay, let's use generic furniture. Yeah, I should change this all to Imperial. Let's assume that you want to create a picture frame of your building. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extrude, just make it as simple. The next thing I want to do is that I want to insert my CAD. Okay, Clubhouse. Okay, where is it? Do you guys see it? Nope, it's hiding behind that. Nope. That is weird. Where is it? Aha. Yes, you're right. Oh, there you go. There we go. Yeah, sometimes I hate like how they do this. Okay, that's where it is. Okay. Now the nice thing about this is that once you have this CAD, you can size this up. So I typically go, let's say this is 4.
They came into scale, right? So
Yeah.
like the 10-inch scale, it fixes that.
I know. Sometimes I hate this. Like, look at this. It just jump around. That's the thing I cannot control. You can try scale. Well, the unfortunate thing is that you can't scale it. You kind of have to go into this and say, okay, I want a 12. Okay, and then this thing keeps jumping around. That's what I hate. But at the same time, you can create your own picturesque kind of like, okay, this is your building kind of a thing, and then you can say picture frame and then put it into your CAD as a picture frame. I did that a lot, okay, so because people say, okay, I want to make it more like realistic kind of a look, and this, I just took my building and then just plunk it in and then make it like a 2D kind of art form. So that's how you do it, so that you can make your Revit lively. Now, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can always use the font because there's also picture as well, art. Okay. There we go. So you can have like different types of art figures to populate your buildings, right? If you want to make it like interior design that has like furniture and all that stuff. This is a perfect way to do it. I mean, there we go. So if you want to like an art, there you go. That looks like an art. I don't know what that is, but it's an anime. But it's doable, right? So you can use this as kind of like your alternative to art. And what I did with that is, in this particular project, Clubhouse, when you look at the interior, this is exactly what I did, is that I took one of the mosaic from the font, and then I made them into more of, is it this one? Yeah, okay. This is a mosaic, right? So what I did is that it's a font, right? And what I did is that I made them into a pattern family, okay? So what happens with a pattern family is that it has this ABC, right? And what I did is that I just do ABC, and then it becomes this kind of like a art form. And what you can do with this is that in Revit for interior, you can just make them into like a wallpaper of collages or art pieces and stuff like that. Makes it very quick. It's very quick and very dirty, right? But it gives you that effect. Yeah, very effective, and then you don't have to model all these pieces, is because everything is done. And I'm just using all of it. It's just a wall art. Okay? Exactly.
Okay, so hang on. Pattern family was using model text.
Exactly. Yeah, it's using that. And if I wanted it to be, let's say a different.
Pattern family relatively new Revit, or is it like old school?
It's old school. Yeah. The nicest thing about this is that I can make it 12 by 12. There we go. Okay, now it changes to different things. So, yeah. So it does help you a lot, right? So if you have a pattern and stuff like that, this makes it perfect, kind of like art. There you go. And if you want, you can just make it 20. There you go. Right? So it's just a font family. And then what you do is that you just say current wall, just give me a pattern wall, and then give me justification, right? Like pattern family. And then I typically do fixed number or fixed distance. Let's say this is 4 feet. And what it does is that it basically breaks apart how many pieces you want. I shouldn't do it. There we go. All right. Any questions so far? So now you learned a little bit trick how to do it. Pretty easy, pretty quick. Because I know that Revit it can be very, very painful, especially when you do modeling a lot of the stuff. It doesn't have to be, so you have to cheat. Because the reason why I say you have to cheat is because this thing can take hours and hours just to get everything corrected. Whereas this one, the model, you can change whatever model, but all the context, everything is at the background. You don't have to do much. So once the model updates, this whole thing is already done, pretty much. Any questions so far? No? Seattle, you guys have any question?
No, we're good.
All right. So hopefully you guys use some of this technique in the future. But do explore the fonts. I like the fonts because the font just open up a new kind of like design piece for your art form. Especially for architecture, when you're doing a lot of interior design and stuff like that, I think they do have a lot of mosaic. I don't know. I have to look.
AI.
Yeah. Let's see if they have anything. Oh yeah, there's fonts. So if you like this kind of a font that looks like that, then yes, just feel free, download it, just experiment with it, so you can get like a different look. 'Cause I love some of this like art form because they do give you like different patterns, especially when you're doing like floor patterns and stuff like that. You want like a special tile to make it look different and stuff like that. This is a perfect way. Yeah, I know interior design would love this if they know the secret, right? So
what's nice is that you can apply that text to a wall or to a floor, and then in your model, it's
yeah.
in perspective view.
Yes, that's correct.
So
Yeah, yeah. And this is not heavy. I mean, that's the nicest thing of a font is that it's not very heavy. It's just a representation, right? The next step I'm gonna think about doing is that how do I create my own font, right? So you can take your own font, put it inside, and then do your own, special things.
Well, if you want to do something along those lines, could you do something like a vector pattern or something in Illustrator and bring it in?
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
Does that end up being heavy, or is it?
It's not heavy, no. No.
Because that would be like, for me, like if I'm going to start making my own patterns and stuff, I'd do it there.
Sure. Yeah, there's a tutorial out there. I haven't really dig into it, unfortunately, because I don't have Illustrator. Well, but if you guys like to try it, just to, because one of the things I like to do is that, especially for this one, the nicest thing about font is that it also works for AutoCAD and different software.
Right. Sure.
So if you have one software, it works for another.
Right.
And the nicest thing is that LRT, if you guys built LRT and then you like to have like certain fonts and certain, let's say, arrow direction for road sign and for example, this makes perfect sense, right? Because you don't have to do a lot of this modeling all this stuff because this is just an extra work. I think I should call traffic, right? Because I've seen people just do symbols. Oh, there you go. So so yeah, you guys could use this as a font, right? And then just say FE whatever, and then it'll tell you, okay, this is paid parking. And when you do like illustrators, you can just say use this as kind of like symbology,
Right.
and then you don't have to create your own fonts, and then it just makes it
You don't
difficult.
have to make your own little icon for
That's
the
correct.
bicycle or whatever, which is fun, but it takes time.
It takes time, but this one works pretty well.
So you could put your own like no parking sign in front of your building to make it look
Yes.
for real.
Right.
Make it a little family.
Yes, you can make the family out of stop sign, and there we go. I mean, the possibility is endless if you guys really are like into this sort of a thing. So, yeah, I do encourage it. But I think this has to be like everybody has to agree which fonts they want to put in and stuff like that, and then
Once it's embedded in a family, like can it just go from it lives in your model, and then if we like, is it embedded at that point?
Yes, it's embedded.
Okay, so if you end up like sending your model to someone or whatever,
Yes.
I mean, not that you really care whether the entourage is going to work or not, but like.
Yes, it's gonna embed it. Yeah, that's a good question. Like the question is that okay, if once this is embedded, then you send this file to a consultant, do they need to have font? No. When you look at this, I have no font, right? This,
It's not, right.
yeah, I don't have that font, but yet the model's still there, so you're fine. So as long as you send the model as a model text and stuff like that, yeah, I think everything should be okay. All right. Okay, that concludes this presentation. If you guys have any future presentation you want me to cover, please let me know. Now, if you guys, newbie, if you want to create your own like Revit kind of a thing, let's say tutorial, I have a resources under the BIM standard. You can always go to the framework, right? And in there, there's a help and training. You can go to Autodesk. And what it does is that it will have like, okay, this is the beginner, what's the lesson plan. I downloaded this recently, so you guys can just look at like, okay, what stuff you want to learn. It's like a data set. And also the other thing is that if you really want to build your own house from scratch, I have the legacy file. This is pretty good because it allows you to create. This is from 2009. I love the old stuff because it actually tells you, okay, this is the house you're gonna build. Okay, for let's say if you're a new user, you don't know how Revit functions, so this will get you into kind of like how you build it piece by piece, right? And this allows you to kind of like, okay, I want to get trained in this, right? So it also helps you to brush up on your Revit skill as well. Now, this data set is pretty old, but it's still relevant to this day because I know that some people have issues with how to create this, how to create stairs, how to create this. This will help you quite a bit, right? Just learning how to build the model from ground up. I think one of two of our users here actually go through piece by piece, going through this exercise. Yeah. Okay. Right, so yeah, I'll send an email out if you guys really want to brush up your skill. This is it's a good data set you guys can go into, and there's beginners, advanced, and intermediate. Right now, this won't talk about all the stuff I'm talking about today because a lot of stuff I'm talking about today are all cheats. Okay, the stuff that they provide is like, okay, you have to follow how Revit function. So the real way, yeah. For me, I like cheating because I'm a cheater. All right.